Well, what's going on, Boise State fans? BJ Rains with you, Bronco Nation News. Bronco Nation News live on a Thursday morning. Appreciate rowpaint.com, our title sponsor here, Power and People Pride in Painting, the official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics. And my guest today is in the rowpaint.com studios there in downtown Boise, KTIK Radio, 95.3, the ticket, KTIK.com, the KTIK app, all the different ways that you hear and love Mike Prater. And it's a Thursday, Mike. Looking forward to a lot to talk about. We got football. We got basketball. We got all kinds of stuff going on. It's kind of a fun time to be talking Boise State sports right now.
Holy cow, it's crazy busy. We were just talking about this before we went on the air. Basketball, as you said, football is kicking up. We got an hour and a half, 90 minutes with the coaches later on today, right after a Leon Rice press conference. Boise State basketball game on Saturday. Football starts on Friday. BJ, it's awesome. We love it.
It is, and everybody, you have to start with the scene at Extra Mile Arena, Mike. Last 2 nights ago, Boise State wins the Mountain West title, the first outright Mountain West championship for this program, the second outright conference championship ever since 1988, and they're dancing on the court. They're going to be dancing here in a couple of weeks in the tournament, Mike. We'll get to the extracurriculars and touch on that, but on the court, what this team has done, 15-2 in the Mountain West, 24-6, and now cutting down the nets the other night as the outright Mountain West champions of the regular season in a league where, oh, by the way, it's one of the most impressive Mountain West seasons they've had in a long time. Hard to put into words how impressive this basketball season has been, Mike.
I would totally agree with that, and having watched basketball games in that building since about 1993, 1994, I could say that's easily one of the top 3 moments ever in that building in terms of the emotions, what's at stake, the accomplishments. Yeah, we'll talk about the shenanigans a little bit here as well. That doesn't even include that. Maybe if we include the shenanigans, this is one of the top, maybe one of the top moments in that building's history, period. So I've been very impressed with Leon Rice, and he's done a nice job with this basketball team. I think it's a group effort. This is a 7-8 guys on the same page when it comes to players. You got a staff that's really, really a veteran staff with an offensive guru, a defensive guru, and both those parts of this team were just absolutely spectacular this year. And then Leon Rice just pushing all the right buttons. So when a coach says my team, and he started saying this, as you know, back in October, November, December, and it started to build. But when a coach says my team is all about chemistry, sometimes coaches use that as a crutch to hide things that are not good with their basketball team. And my radar goes straight to, there's red flags here when he talks about that. It really worked this time, BJ, as you know. It really, really worked. These 7 guys were on the same page. It was kind of beautiful. It was poetry in motion. I don't know much about poetry, but it was poetry in motion, BJ.
Well, I mean, you think back, and we've talked a lot about it now, and I know Bob's talked about it on your show as well. I mean, when they were 3-4, and I remember flying back from the San Diego State football game that night. I missed the Bakersfield game, which I later apologized to Leon Rice for missing that, and he said, "Be happy you did." It was, just watching my phone updating that score against Bakersfield, and you find out they lose 46-39 against a team that's ranked like 275th in KenPom, and it was the worst offensive performance basically in school history in terms of field goal percentage and points, and it was, you put it all together, it was literally the worst offensive game they've ever had in program history. It was an embarrassing bad loss that dropped them to 3-3. A couple days later, you go 12 of 26 from the free throw line, and you lose in overtime to St. Louis. You're 3-4. And there's people wondering if they're going to finish 500. And you combine that with the last couple of years, the failures down the stretch. I mean, there was some serious pressure on Leon Rice and this coaching staff to get, and I'm not saying he was going to be fired, but I mean, they had to, it was a big time where they had to turn it around. And so to do what they did, turn it around, I mean, it's just pretty impressive. And you throw in there kicking off, maybe your most talented player, Devonair Dutrieve, and what the cojones that takes to do a move like that at that point. And it could have gone one of 2 ways. I mean, that dude's roommates with Emmanuel Akot and Abu Kijab, and you just kick him off the team. I mean, it took a lot of buy-in from these guys and to realize that the team was better off. And you throw a Tyson Degenhardt in, and the rest is history. I mean, I know every championship team. I mean, I remember my St. Louis Blues were dead last in the NHL on January 1st or whatever. I mean, every team has some story, but it seems like with this team, it is pretty remarkable to think about where they were and where they are right now.
I would agree with that. Your Blues team had a theme song, Gloria. Well, what's Boise State's theme song? I don't remember exactly what they cranked up as their theme song to kind of get the mojo going, but It has been very impressive. I keep thinking of that Bakersfield loss, and really the only thing missing from this basketball team, leave it to Prater to go straight to the Debbie Downer guy, but the only thing missing on this resume right now is that top 25 spot. And Boise State's been in the top 25 poll up before, I believe, as a number 25 team.
One time, 1 week as number 25 in the history of the program. Yep.
They win that basketball game, they might be flirting with 19 to 23 range, depending on how it all shook out. So it's weird to think that Boise State dominated this basketball season, one of the best Mountain West seasons this conference has ever put together, although Wyoming's kind of petering out a little bit on us. But it's a strong conference. Boise State just dominated it, and they're nowhere to be found in the top 25 poll, which I know means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, but it's a resume part of this program, and it would have been nice if they could have had that. Bigger things ahead, moving on from the top 25. This is a top 25 basketball team, top 30 team. This is now a Team BJ, and I'm not changing my expectations because as the season started, I just said, get to the tournament. Get to the tournament. But now the expectations for at least fans and for this program is to go out and win a game. And for the first time in Boise State basketball history, I really think they have a chance to win a game. In 1993, no chance. 1994, no chance. I covered both of those games. Before that, in the 80s with the Chris Childs and the Arnell Jones group, they didn't really have a chance. Boise State basketball has a chance in the main draw, not Dayton, not the first four, the main draw. Boise State's expectations are to win a basketball game, and that's the kind of growth this basketball program has had.
Well, they're going to be wearing the white uniforms probably as the favored team. I mean, they're going to be probably the 8th seed or higher in that first game. So, yeah, and Perry coming in here, Mike, on the YouTube channel saying maybe we passed the late season meltdown curse on to Wyoming.
Well, it is Linder. They are good buddies, and Linder probably picked up some bad habits hanging out with Leon. So, yeah, let's blame Leon on that one too then.
They've lost 4 out of 6. They're struggling a little bit. I still think they're in a okay spot right now, but they can't really afford many losses. I wanted to talk Leon Rice, though, Mike, because you've been probably as critical as literally anybody in this town of him, at least in the media, in the last couple of years. And I respect you for that. When it's going good, you give him the credit. When it's not, you're not afraid to call him out. And I know that you guys have had your differences over the years, the slow growth comments. Whenever I need a good laugh, I go back to the KTIK YouTube channel and find that clip and just some of the mannerisms on Leon's face when you're asking the question and then the response. But you know what, you're not afraid to ask those kind of questions and write those kind of columns. And I know that's why the Treasure Valley respects you when it's warranted to do that. But on the flip side, the credits due where credits due. And so, I know we talked last week, I guess, and I mentioned something about a contract extension or at least a little more money for the charter flights and things like that. But, as we put the video up here in a second of Leon Rice cutting down the nets last night 2 nights ago at Extra Mile Arena, I mean, what are just your thoughts? As I said, you're 3-4. There's some pressure building on Leon Rice to do something. You got a new AD that's evaluating the program and wondering, if he's the guy for this program. Didn't hire him, obviously. But to be there at Extra Mile Arena and see the scene where Leon Rice was cutting down the nets, Mike, 2 nights ago. And what was your thoughts, I guess, on this moment and just on what Leon Rice did to turn around this season and maybe his, Boise State tenure here?
I was sitting in the stands when that moment that we're just showing right there happened. And I tweeted out that Leon Rice got the biggest ovation. Abu Kijab went right before him, and he's obviously the most popular player and was just spectacular on senior night and got a really nice ovation. And then all of a sudden, Leon Rice jumps in there and jumps on his net, and the crowd went crazy. And my comment was that he really deserves this. Leon Rice deserves this, and it had to be a feel-good moment for him. He's gone through a lot. He's been here a lot. He's done a lot. He's never really had this kind of a moment. And after 12 years to have that kind of moment, that had to feel really good for Leon Rice, who deserved every second of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, we'll see what this means moving forward. I still think his name's going to pop up for some other jobs now too. And so who knows if, what his future holds. I would imagine he just tries, like I said, I found out the numbers, Mike. They got 5 more charter flights this year than they've had in a normal year. And after the game, Leon Rice flat out said it. He said, I want to give a shout out to Jeremiah Dickey and Cody Gogler because that stuff matters. He said, when we're losing, it sounds like complaining and sour grapes and stuff, which people have said in the past that when they flame out in March and people want to bring up the budget and the lack of charter flights, it does sound like complaining and whining at the time. And he said, yeah, I understand that, but he said it's proving this year that it does matter. He said I think the exact quote was the commitment that this administration is making to the men's basketball team is why you cut down the nets. It's why you hang banners from the rafters. And he said it's why he's excited about the future. And so I'm not saying they're going to get a 737, private charter for every game now moving forward, but being able to get back on a Saturday night after UNLV and not have to wait till a noon flight on Sunday and get back and waste all of Sunday flying back from Vegas, or to be able to get back on some of these trips, it's paying off. And I think that, maybe it's just a coincidence. Leon Rice says it's not, but you're seeing more charter flights. I think it was about $175,000 added for charter flights to the budget. And, it doesn't seem like a lot, but 4 or 5 extra one-way trips home after a game instead of waiting to wake up at 5 a.m. from Reno and have to fly to, Vegas and back to Boise. I mean, that stuff adds up. And I think you are seeing Cody Gogler and Jeremiah Dickey and some of the changes they're making are starting to, show what can happen.
And I would like to see them take advantage of this and continue to build the things around this program. You and I talked last week about Leon's contract, and I've always said it's a very comfortable contract with the rollover and everything. I don't think Leon Rice needs extra cash. If Leon Rice goes on a nice NCAA tournament run, wins a game, maybe wins 2 games, let's reward him. Let's figure it out.
I got to cut in for one thing, though. Do you think the New Mexico coach Richard Pitino should be making more than Leon?
No, but he's doing that based on the name.
What about Kruger, the UNLV coach?
Doing it probably based on the name, doing it based on the market, doing it based on that. I understand where you're going, BJ, but I would rather, in an ideal world, let's get Leon money and the program money. But when you give Leon money, that doesn't help the program. It doesn't help win games. It helps keep your coach, which there's an indirect effect. But I think that there's so many needs for this basketball program that you've chronicled well over the last couple of years that continue to build that. That's the priority here. The support staff, the infrastructure, everything else that they need. That's how you win basketball games. You don't win basketball games by giving the head coach more money, especially when he has a comfortable contract. Should he be making more money than those guys? And I have no idea how much money they make. Yeah, they should. But they came into bigger markets with bigger history, bigger boosters, and bigger last names. Leon Rice, he's doing it the right way. It's a little bit slow for my taste. I've chronicled that, as you've pointed out. But let's not worry about Leon. If he, like I said, if he goes off and wins some NCAA tournament games, give him as much money as we could possibly afford. But I'm more worried and more the situation that Boise State basketball is in now. Build the infrastructure. That's how you contain this. That's how you build the success. That's how you keep it sustainable. That's how you keep winning 1, 2, 3, 4 years at a time, not by giving the coach a raise.
Well, it is easier to go to your big donors and ask for another $50,000 or whatever when you're Mountain West champions and you're having a good season like this, to say, hey, look what can happen if we get more stuff next year. Don't forget they added a whole staff position. Lexus Williams was added in, and that was a full-time position, and he does a hodgepodge of things as scouting and helping with Leon and helping David Moach with organizing some of the off-the-court stuff. I mean, he has a hodgepodge of roles, but I mean, that was another issue. They have the lowest amount of full-time staff in the Mountain West, so they added to that with Lexus Williams. They added to the charter flights. There's some other things they're working on. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the only way it would be is if he were to leave is the alternative. So if you have to give him money to keep him here, sure, that's fine. But yeah, indirectly, just paying the same guy more money doesn't really do much. But I agree, and I think he probably does, whether you like it or not, get a bump somehow in his pay. I do think that, but I think the biggest area you're talking about is, yes, look what can happen when you do have the flights, when you do have the infrastructure. Yes. They still don't have a full-time video coordinator. They still don't have a dedicated, trainer that only works with the basketball team. I mean, there's still a lot of areas they could infuse money into this program and continue to see the result of that. The recruiting budget is still not very good. So, I think there's a lot of ways they can do it. But like I said, when it's kind of a chicken before the egg thing at times, and now you're seeing the results of what could happen. And so I think they are going to be able to, this will be a big off season for them to go to the donors and try to get a little more money and raise the maybe the entry fee for the Hardwood Club or things like that. So I think that this success this year on the court and then also off the court could pave the way for the future.
Also think about this. I mean, what is the last time, and I don't think it's happened since, well, I know it hasn't happened since you've been here, because I'm not even sure it's happened since I've been here. basketball, there's more buzz right now in this town for basketball than there is football. And when there's buzz like that, and it's not massive buzz, when football success, leaks into this town, there's crazy buzz. Basketball right now is just kind of, we're all talking about it, mostly about what happened after the game the other night, but we're still talking about Boise State basketball. This is the perfect opportunity to dive in, maybe grab some of those football boosters. And I know there's plenty that give money for both programs, but yeah, I think the opportunity to take advantage of this situation is absolutely right there. All the boxes are checked. All the stars are lined. Basketball's the superstar on campus right now. And if they could go off and win some NCAA tournament games, holy shnikes, it's going to be a big, big buzz in this town. It's never happened. And that would be huge, BJ.
And it's amazing when I tell Mark Ziegler and some of the other writers and people that cover the Mountain West, when I'm like, yo, they're 0-7. They've never won. They can't even believe it. They've never won. And then they also find it hard to believe, wait, they've only made the tournament 2 times in the under Leon Rice. They have all this success, and then you look at it and you realize it, and they really never won a tournament game. And as I said, they're on track to be the higher seeded team. Scott Stewart always attended games. My first time purchasing season tickets, didn't disappoint. Can't wait to see him in the tournament. I'll be curious for the crowd in Vegas, because I've talked to a lot of people, Mike, who've said that for the first time ever they're going. And I'm talking like 10, 12 random people that have told me, oh, we've never gone before, but this is the year we're going. I think Wyoming will draw well because they always travel well. I mean, I would suspect this is going to be one of the more, attended Mountain West tournaments. And Dayton's asking, could they get 5 in the tournament if UNLV or another team wins the tournament next week? Sure. I mean, right now, I think you got 4 in. Wyoming's teetering. They need to not, take care of business. But yeah, I mean, those 4 could get in. And then if a UNLV or a Fresno State or somebody wins the tournament, I guess that would be the dream scenario. Get 5, but they're still hanging on with 4 at this point.
I'm worried they're going to get stuck at 3 if all the chips fall and they, some of these teams going in the conference championship weekends, the wrong teams lose. That's Wyoming is picking the wrong time to go on a losing streak. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but we've always said that the Mountain West was a 3, maybe a 4 team league. Asking for 5 when I think it's probably closer to 3 right now. Yeah, that's not going to happen, BJ.
Rudy's asking, are there donors who are basketball donors, or are they football donors who are asked to help in basketball? I would lean towards the second. I mean, they have a smaller group. It's a much smaller group that just focuses on basketball, but I know that's actually been frustrating to the coaches in the past, where it seems like a lot of the fundraisers are going out asking for money for football, and I think that they're trying to change that a little bit. They do have the Hardwood Club and some areas where they're getting money for basketball, and that is improving. Mike, before we go, I do want to mention my partners out at Timberstone Golf Course. PlayTimberstone.com is the web address. I actually, Mike snuck out and played my first round of the year yesterday morning, and so we will not discuss the score. But that was my first time swinging a club probably in 6 months, and so it predictably did not go well. But I got plenty of practice out there on the court. I'll just say that. Working on my swing. But Timberstone, it's in great shape for early March. So get out there. You can get a tee time, playtimberstone.com. It's, not too far. Everyone thinks, oh, Caldwell's way out there. It's like 35 minutes from my house. It's not bad. So get on out to Timberstone. Course is in great shape. Had a great time talking to Ted Holloway, the head pro out there, and Kelly Christensen, the GM's a big BSU fan. So we got some free rounds we're going to be giving away, doing some contests and things like that. And we'll be having our golf tournament actually as well, Mike, out there, which off air I need to talk to you about. We're hoping to make you one of the celebrity players in the golf tournament. We'll see if we can make that happen here. We might be able to get somebody to pay some pretty good money to play around the golf with Mike Prater.
You had me at golf, my friend, and I do love the boys at Timberstone. That's a great course. I like that course. The best greens in the valley by chance, and Tad and Kelly do a great job. So I love going out there. So that's not an endorsement. That's just my personal preference. And I don't like to play golf with the minions, BJ, but for the Bronco Nation News first annual golf tournament, let's make some magic happen. It'd be a lot of fun.
That's my negotiating style. I just put you on the spot live on the air and not give you a choice to say no. We'll talk about that later, but I do want to talk briefly off the court and then finish up with football. We got about 8 minutes left here, Mike. But just briefly, you had Jeremiah Dickey on the show yesterday. Great get there. That podcast is available if people subscribe to the podcast, or you can listen at KTIK.com to the athletic director at Boise State. We saw all the statements come out. There was a lot of hate going towards Jeremiah Dickey and Marlene Trump after the game. I think if folks would have just used common sense, the athletic director is not going to be ordering students to not be kept on the court, to be body slamming them to the ground. I mean, there were some ridiculous takes out there, and I think common sense prevailed with the statement. Whether Boise State push them to make that statement, whatever. I mean, it was clear that there was just a couple of rogue, guys that just decided to, it was their Super Bowl and they wanted to tackle people to the ground, and that's fine. But what was your overall take, I guess, with what happened and then the response and just how do you sum up the whole after the game incident with the fans at the game?
Yeah, very unfortunate, very unfortunate. And if you're ripping on Jeremiah Dickey, you have ignorant information and you're just out there being an emotional blowhard, which I'm guilty of as plenty of times. If you're ripping on Marlene Trump, you have an agenda, and I'll just leave it at that. I think the one thing that Jeremiah Dickey learned in this situation, because he talked and he was adamant. I talked to him after the game, and then we had him on the show yesterday, and he was adamant that the communication was there. There's one great piece of advice. I went to a journalism convention 30 years ago. Rick Riley was the lead speaker, the Sports Illustrated columnist. And the greatest piece of advice that he gave me was, as a young reporter, always make one more phone call. And that's really helped me out a lot in my career. That last phone call got me some great information. Jeremiah Dickey communicated his plan, but he probably needed to talk to one more person and make sure, or have one more meeting, because you know what? The communicated plan didn't get communicated. Somebody screwed it up. And I'm not saying it was Jeremiah Dickey. Extra Mile Arena, you guys blew it. Security people, you guys blew it. It was one of the greatest moments in that building's history. And you have 500 students, or however many there were in that section. By the way, 500, not just students, but 500 prospective donors. The emotional kind, the passionate kind, the kind that show up at basketball games, and the kind that are in college that are going to go off and make money. And maybe they want to give back to the university one day. I promise you, there is 10 years from now, somebody's going to be going, I should give Boise State basketball some money. No, they screwed me over on one of the greatest nights of my student life. Somebody's going to hold a grudge. It's going to cost money down the road. That's just an anecdotal piece of information about an ugly incident. Rent-A-Cops, you guys got out of control. It was too bad that it was taken care of like that. You'll never get that moment back. It's been 35 years since Boise State had that moment. I don't want to wait 35 more years, BJ, to wait for security to screw it up again. So I thought it was a very unfortunate incident, and I thought that Jeremiah Dickey handled it very well. He got after the security staff after the game. He got after the Extra Mile Arena staff the next day. He forced that statement, in my opinion, making sure that they get it out there. He probably even wrote it because it was a very harsh worded statement. So I think it was just too bad, and it's a shame that Extra Mile Arena and its security staff had to blow this great moment.
We got folks saying here, Mike, that they would pay to play with Prater for the golf tournament. So we will see about that. Someone was asking about the dates. June 3rd. June 3rd is the date of the golf tournament. More information on that. We're even working with JP, Mike, to maybe do the show out there that day and get some interviews for you guys with some of the other celebs making the trip. We'll see what we can work on that in the future. Josh says he's making the trip to Vegas, Prater, on Wednesday.
Nice.
So I will throw out there, if you're watching this, we're going to have the Bronco Nation News Bash there the night before the tournament starts. Wednesday night, come join us. Circa Casino there. We'll be there 7 to 10 at the Overhang Bar on Wednesday. That's the night before the BSU game. Come join us, get some free swag, some drink specials. Maybe Prater will give me an autographed picture or two to bring down, give away. We'll see if we can put that in the raffle or something. We'll see if we can do that. But Mike, final couple of minutes here, and it's going to be a busy day today for us. We got Leon Rice talking in about 40 minutes here down at BSU, and then we got football interviews today. Andy Avalos, and then we'll hear from both coordinators, I believe, or at least all the assistant coaches will be available. It kind of snuck up on people. Usually by this point in the season, the basketball team is struggling or not doing great, and the attention's already been to spring football. I can't remember maybe a time in my 9 years here, 10, almost 10 now, where it's spring football has had such little buildup or attention, and that's obviously on us to build it up. But there's been so much to talk about with basketball and so much to do, and it's a good problem to have, I guess, for Boise State fans in this valley. But spring football, the first practice, 9 a.m. tomorrow. And, we'll find out a lot about this team over the next month, obviously coming off the 7-5 season, some coaching changes. You lose some key players, you get some key players back. But, we got Andy Avalos and the coaches today, and we start practice tomorrow.
Not only do we have Andy Avalos and coaches and players, we have lots of questions, BJ, lots of questions. One of the biggest, most important off seasons in Boise State football history. Andy Avalos, as we talked about on the show yesterday, Johnny had a great idea in terms of what is Andy Avalos thinking? He shows up in a basketball uniform at the game. He's wearing his old number 40, and he's sitting there with his buddies, including Keith Bonaparte. A lot of these football players are up in the stands. and they're cutting down the nets, and they're having this championship moments, and all of a sudden basketball is upstaging football. Eddie Avalos is a great guy, and he's a great team player, and I'm sure it was nothing but pure excitement. But inner side, it's got to drive him to go off and do that. He doesn't want football to be the secondary show in this town. I think this is going to be a highly motivated offseason for Boise State football. So many questions. The quarterback had knee surgery. Some of the star football players have gone. So many problems from last year are still around. So many plugged and holes so many holes to plug on this roster in this depth chart. I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. I cannot wait for spring ball. I can't wait to see for the competition. We don't typically get a lot of answers in spring ball, but we get loaded up with a lot of information.
Obviously, Khalil Shakir leaving is the main offensive storyline, and you try to replace him at wide receiver. You have Helani back. You need to build some depth there, obviously, and the offensive line, brings back a lot, but needs to improve there. You got Bonifaz coming in as the running backs coach. Bachmeier coming off his knee injury, his continued development, and then defensively you got Skinner and Jones, rock solid at the safety spot. You're working on the corners. You lose Wimpy. You get Noah back. I guess in the final thing here, what is kind of your offseason storylines or checklists, or what any key areas you're focused on the next month here with this football team?
Let's start with the running game. How are you going to get this running game so you're not running out of a hole halfway through the season? How do you get this running game to the point where it explodes on the opening day of the football season on Labor Day weekend, so you're not having to worry about it? You got Helani back and presumably going to be healthy. You got the new kid out of Texas, this Ashton Genty, I believe is what you call, and he's here. I fully expect him to be 1A, 1B based on his pedigree, and just based on the fact that running backs today, you have to have two of them. You have to have three of them. So they don't have Cyrus anymore. They don't have Andrew Van Buren anymore, and there's an opportunity there. And so I think the new kid and Helani are going to be a great 1-2 punch. The running game has to start strong right out of the chute. This football team cannot be finding its running game in November this year.
Yep, no doubt about it. And there's some pressure. I mean, obviously 7-5 is not what people around here are used to. And you mentioned the, basketball success certainly helping as well. So a lot to get to. And now you got your show. I'll have it covered. Prater in the ball game 3 to 6. What's on the Thursday docket today?
A lot of Boise State. We're going to, as you said, Leon Rice and the football coaches and the football staff. And we're going to talk to Tim Plow about the offense. We're going to talk to Spencer Danielson. Can this defense go from being good to elite? That's a big question for Johnny and myself. So we're going to be loading up totally on Boise State. By the way, thanks for filling in for me last Friday. I appreciate you. And we'll see you tomorrow, Friday, Idaho Sports Talk with the Bronco Nation News Report at 4 o'clock, as we do every Friday on Idaho Sports Talk, BJ.
I just thank you for on the show yesterday, a moment that I missed, pointing out that John Mallory was hugging and taking selfies with Max Rice. I hadn't seen that, so I made sure to send him a text right away. You throw that. I wish we got to find where the photo is, I guess, to get proof. But
I wish there's proof. It's burned into my eyes. I'll never get it out of my head. I was with somebody, and we have witnesses. Unfortunately, there is no proof. But Johnny Ballgame got caught up in the moment. It was a beautiful moment, and my partner is a passionate, a very emotional guy. So yeah, there was a little hug. There was a little selfie. We gave Ballgame some crap on the show yesterday, but we love him, and I wish I had some of that emotional passion, BJ, but we'll get after it somehow.
I think you said, don't change, Ballgame, that's who you are, and I love it. I got a text from him last night. It said, I'm really pumped for tomorrow. I love football interviews. Can't wait to talk to Plow. And I just chuckled because I said, there's John Mallory the night before football interviews getting giddy over talking to Tim Plow.
Fix that offense, Tim. Fix that offense.
We love Johnny Ballgame. Appreciate you, Mike. We'll see you down at the interview. It's going to be a fun day, and then we'll be listening 3 to 6, KTIK.com, the KTIK app, and 95.3 FM, 1350 AM as well. Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks, BJ. Appreciate you, bud.
Yep, there he is, Mike Prater. Appreciate his time here. Bronco Nation News, BroncoNationNews.com. And again, they'll have full coverage on their show with all the interviews today with the players. We'll have full coverage as well on the site with videos and things like that. So appreciate you checking us out. Bronco Nation News, BroncoNationNews.com.